Tonight on The Times on WAMI 69, an Air France Concorde crashes into the French countryside. We'll take a look at early indications of what went wrong. And it may not have saved lives on the Concorde, but a revolutionary new airplane skin could save your skin in a crash. So why are the FAA and the airlines dragging their feet? It was close, but Dick Cheney has beaten out Arnold Schwarzenegger as Bush's running mate. We investigate the not-so-exact science of picking a number 2.
The more you hear somebody talked about as the likely nominee, then the less likely that person will be to get the job.
So Darva may not be good enough for the Today Show, but Matt and Katie always have time for a sports legend.
Live from WAMI 69, breaking the story and breaking the rules. These are The Times with Ben Mankiewicz.
Topping the Times tonight, by now, no doubt, you've heard about the day's top story. An Air France Concorde bound for New York from Paris crashed just minutes after takeoff, slamming into a hotel, killing all 109 people on board and at least 4 on the ground. Nearly all the victims on the chartered flight were German tourists. Concorde jets have been flying for more than 30 years, yet today's crash was the first. Here's Faye Fredericks now with a very preliminary look at what might have gone wrong.
An inferno of smoke and flames marks the spot where 3 decades of air safety came to an end. Tonight, this is what remains of the first Concorde to ever crash. An amateur photographer captured these fiery images moments after the Air France Concorde with 109 people aboard slammed into the ground. The plane had just taken off from Paris's Charles de Gaulle Airport. Witnesses say the Concorde had trouble gaining altitude, then plowed headlong into a hotel, killing 4 people on the ground.
I'm sure the whole crew was working, feverishly.
John Ebersol is an aviation attorney and former fighter pilot.
He had everything going against him. If he'd have been higher, he could have recovered. He could have dumped fuel, got lighter. There's a lot of things he could have done, but
witnesses say at least one of the plane's engines was on fire as the plane left the ground. But even if the pilots realized there was a problem while they were still on the runway, Ebersol says once the plane hits a certain speed, the pilots have no choice but to take their chances in the air.
Even if the pilot saw temperatures spiking on a couple engines, or if he felt like he had a problem, he had to take off at that point because he would have just crashed at the end of the runway.
Instead, the plane crashed some 3 miles away, killing everyone aboard.
And at the present time, we have only been able to confirm 1 American on board who was a retired Air France employee in Germany.
The passengers were members of a German tour group that had chartered the jet for a flight to New York.
The airplane is safe. Notwithstanding the accident today, it's a safe airplane.
John McDonald is an aviation consultant here in Miami. He says the Concorde is considered one of the safest aircraft around, despite the fact the plane's supersonic technology dates back to the 1960s.
We don't have such a thing as in the industry as old planes. There's a myth in people's mind that they marry that thought up with an old car.
McDonald says, unlike cars, planes are constantly being inspected and parts are routinely replaced, so it's hard to gauge any aircraft's true age.
The airplane is disassembled and it's rebuilt. To me, that airplane starts off with 0 again.
French authorities will be in charge of the crash investigation. Ebersol suspects they won't have to look too far to find the doomed plane's problem.
I think we'll know pretty soon. I'm pretty sure the maintenance records will show something. It just seems like a maintenance problem to me because it's been so reliable. It's just simply just logic.
Okay. I've actually flown on the Concorde. I did it twice, once from New York to London and then obviously back. And it was actually on the British one, but it's essentially the same plane. 2 things that really strike you. Right. First of all is that there's so many gadgets, so many neat things that even if you do have a fear of flying, I'm not really a scared flyer, but I'm sort of a healthy respect for it. Let me put it that way. Healthy respect for crashing. That it doesn't even occur to you that this plane could crash. You hear about Rolls-Royce engines and all the history of it, and you're so caught up with it that it doesn't even occur to you.
What's different? What made you talk about the gadgets? What gadgets are we talking about?
On the bulkhead, they actually have your speed in Mach, your speed in miles per hour, altitude, how far you have to go, and it constantly keeps rotating. And then you look outside the window, and you can actually see a little bit of the curvature of the Earth, and wow. You see other planes, and they look like little tiny ants down there. It's just amazing. And I actually got to to go up to the cockpit once, and we saw the other Concorde flying in front of us. It was a great experience.
Well, all right, Faye Fredericks, thanks very much. Considering the Concorde appears to have essentially disintegrated on impact, it seems unlikely anything could have saved the passengers and crew. Danielle Serino produced a powerful story a year and a half ago on the real killer in most air crashes, the fire. Danielle joins us now to revisit with this important information. It was a great story.
Before I even get into the technology, I want to touch on something you said, which is the whole aura around the plane and how it's the Rolls Royce and how high profile it is. You would think it costs a lot of money to make that plane.
Right.
People pay a lot of money to go on it. We've heard reports, what, $10,000?
Right.
But money is the one reason why technology that could save lives during a crash is not being used. Now, there's this product called Panther Skin. What they do is they spray it on the interior of the plane, and it helps prevent fire from getting inside the cabin. Now, that may not have helped the people in this flight, but when you consider that 40% of the people who die in a crash don't die from impact, they die from flames, this is really important technology. But the airlines are not using it. The FAA is not mandating that they do, even though they've had this technology for a year, which was when we first brought you the story.
Chicago, 1979. 273 die as an American Airlines flight plunges into the ground after an engine falls off. Detroit, 1987. 156 are incinerated after a Northwest plane slams into the tarmac and bursts into flames. Could the death toll have been reduced? What if we had the ability to add seconds, perhaps minutes, in the race to rescue passengers from the rubble of a fiery plane crash?
Somebody has to die before they'll look at something. Well, we've had more than one person die.
For the last 20 years, Dr. Milton Torres has been working on a product he calls Panther Skin. A chemically treated foam that could serve as a barrier between the flyer and the flames. Torres, a former fighter pilot, began investigating a substance known as polyisocyanurate after helplessly watching a friend get burned alive in a plane crash.
He opened the canopy halfway, and the flames just toasted him. And I vowed that if I could do anything to save anybody in flying from burning to death like that, I would do it.
There's nothing new about these polymers. NASA tested them on the original Apollo mission to prevent burn-up on re-entry. But it was Torres who began testing it on simulated commercial jets, and his findings are astounding.
In excess of 2,500 degrees, it still protects you for 26 minutes. That means nobody has to rush out of the airplane.
This is a major breakthrough, considering 40% of plane fatalities are from fire, not from the impact of the crash. And as of now, there's nothing to protect that passenger, says crash investigator Dave Altman.
If this works a lot better and it gives you another half hour of time, which is enough time to get these people out of the airplane, it's worth the cost.
What's strange is the commercial airline industry and the FAA have known about this stuff and haven't pursued it.
As we were testing it, we found the corrosion properties. We found not only that it didn't burn, but it would cement the aircraft together.
There is a drawback, though. Panther Skin adds weight to the plane, and more weight means more fuel and higher operating costs, which is ultimately why the FAA rejected it.
Yeah, we can probably save some lives. Unfortunately, one of the questions is at what price?
Jordan Green is a former pilot and FAA-licensed mechanic who owns an aviation's appraisal company. He says while it sounds crass, airlines don't see saving just one life as cost-effective.
Your HMO does that on your medical treatment. You know, is it worth it to spend the money on her to save her life versus what it'll cost us? This is a constant analysis that goes on.
It wasn't until 1998, after 7 major crashes and nearly 1,000 casualties, that the FAA decided to take another look at Panther Skin.
The public is not aware of just how easy it is to fix this problem. Otherwise, they'd be screaming for it.
Now, in the year that the FAA has had the product, Dr. Torres came up with another improved formula that further slows down the amount of time it takes for the fire to get in. He's submitting those results next month, and the FAA says they'll rule on this by next year, but you can bet the airline industry is going to Fight this all the way.
Because they fought the previous invention as well.
Sure. It costs the money.
Right. Well, let's talk about that. How much would it cost to retrofit planes? Forget new planes. How much would it cost to retrofit old planes?
You can retrofit old planes for about $100,000, but it costs about $12,000 in gas, in additional gas costs per flight. So somebody, because it's a heavier plane, somebody has to pick up that cost. The airlines don't want to pick it up. I'm sure the passengers are not going to be thrilled about it. I don't know, but if somebody proposed to you a couple $100 more a flight, but if it crashes, you won't burn to death.
It's tough. I suspect if it's that much, if it's $100 a flight, I suspect people would say no.
Really?
Yeah, I would think so. On the theory that if a plane goes down, it's probably curtains anyway. Who knows?
I'd pay anything.
You would. You'd pay anything for everything. Danielle Serino, thanks very much. Break time's now. We'll have these stories when we come back. Polls show George W. leading Al Gore for president, but apathy is kicking both their asses. Will the scramble for the number 2 spot on the ticket spice up the campaign? Tonight, Mark Mooney on the race for second best.
The campaigns have basically been stuck in neutral since first week in March.
Then, how you can turn airplane turbulence into a big paycheck. It's a sign of our litigious times. And we'll tell you the truth about O.J. Simpson's Today Show interview.
You're watching The Times on WAMI 69 with Ben Mankiewicz, and reports tonight from Mark Mooney, Danielle Serino, and Faye Fredericks. Those stories and more when The Times returns on WAMI 69.
We're on. Hello, Mo. Hello, we're on. Up. Hi.
Hey.
We're here. That is live television for you.
It's a beautiful
We're here.
thing.
We're in the studio. We're just getting everything together now. Don, go like this.
I'm going to play the unrhythmic brother for this one, okay?
Okay. It's all about the reggae concert.
It's all about the reggae
this
concert.
Saturday, 6 p.m. right here on WAMI 69. We have
Freddie McGregor.
And Benji Myers
That's
and
right.
celebrity interviews. Just watch this.
It's going to be awesome.
The concert series, brought to you by the new Ford Focus, has your all-access pass to music's biggest stars. Don't just get behind the music, get into it. Saturday, July 29th at 6 p.m., the Whammy Concert Series presents reggae superstar Freddie McGregor. Get the buzz on this island legend. Then, see special guest Benji Myers. Don't miss the Whammy Concert Series, Saturday, July 29th at 6 p.m., only on WAMI 69. Brought to you by the new Ford Focus.
You never know. I don't see it happening. He hasn't raised enough to make it happen.
I was talking to Maurice when he was kind of contemplating it.
Of the litigious times tonight, an update on a story we've been outraged about before. Back in 1995, an American Airlines flight from New York to LA went through severe turbulence. 13 of the passengers sued, not for physical injuries, but based on the psychological trauma they suffered. Together, the 13 won $2.25 million because they feared they were going to die. They sued for turbulence. Those 13 should have kissed the ground and thanked the pilots for saving their lives when they landed. Anyway, yesterday a federal judge upheld nearly the entire award, throwing out only $150,000 to Steven Spielberg's niece, who was on the plane. She was 2 at the time. The judge ruled there was no evidence the child suffered any permanent emotional damage, and besides, she's going to be a millionaire anyway. Showtimes. Never let it be said that daytime television doesn't have principles. The Today Show has drawn a line in the sand. Publicity whore Darva Conger has been banned. But O.J. Simpson? No problem. I mean, it's not like he killed anybody. Simpson appeared to promote the launch of his website, AskOJ.com, scheduled to launch later this month. He was on Today, by the way. Host Katie Couric asked O.J. some pointed questions like why he won't take a lie detector test. Simpson says the test never helps the person taking it, but he did say he would take the test for the right price, you know, to help his family financially. Katie Couric also asked Simpson about the grueling search for the real killers.
Is the search for the killer or killers going?
Well, from time to time we get information. Just this past week we got some information. I really can't say what the subject matter is.
Yeah, I'm sure that information that he got was a big giant envelope with one single page inside said, "You did it." Let's do the web poll now. Who's more worthy of being blamed or being banned from the Today Show? Excuse me. 3 choices: A, Darva Conger; B, O.J. Simpson; or C, Scott Baio. I mean, enough already with that guy, huh? Please participate. You can vote in the web poll by visiting our website, wami.citysearch.com. Once you're there, click on the Times, and we'll have those results later in this program. Another break. We're back in a couple of minutes. Stay with us.
You're watching The Times on WAMI 69.
Thanks. Campaign 2000, George W. Bush stunned the political world with his courageous choice for vice president today. Actually, he picked Dick Cheney. But the last time a Bush went out on a limb to name a vice president, we all got stuck with 4 years of Dan Quayle. So George Jr. made the safe choice today, as expected, picking his dad's former defense secretary, Dick Cheney, to take the number 2 spot on the ticket. Ironically, Cheney was leading Bush's vice presidential search team. That must have been an awkward conversation. "George, I found the perfect man for the job. It's me." So who is Dick Cheney? Before serving as Secretary of Defense, Cheney was Gerald Ford's chief of staff, youngest man ever to hold that job at 34. He was elected to Congress in 1978 from Wyoming, and it is there that Cheney developed a very conservative voting record. He opposed abortion rights, even for rape and incest. He opposed environmental legislation. He was against all gun control. He supported school prayer. He backed all of Ronald Reagan's tax cuts. He was one of only 21 lawmakers to vote against a ban on armor-piercing bullets in '85. Those are so-called cop killers. In 1987, he was one of 8 to oppose the Clean Water Act. So why did Bush, the self-proclaimed compassionate conservative, choose a conservative with a less than compassionate voting record? Bear in mind, those votes were back in the 80s before Cheney joined the executive branch as Secretary of Defense. Bush also likely considered Cheney's reputation. He is certainly considered one of the good guys, highly respected by both Democrats and Republicans alike. Bottom line, who knows what Bush was thinking, and who knows what the hell Al Gore is thinking now? Doesn't really matter. The joy is in the speculation. Here's Mark Mooney now on the Veep buzz on both sides of the aisle.
It's that time again, and what could be more fun than making Oscar picks? It's guessing who they pick for running mate. Hey, we could use a little excitement right now.
The campaigns have basically been stuck in neutral since first week in March.
Since the campaign so far is devoid of controversy, and it's not like the parties will pick somebody other than Bush or Gore at the conventions, the only real suspense is who will be number 2 on the ticket. That's right, even Tom Brokaw's name has been dropped, as in Gore Brokaw. And to ensure Bush carries California, some have asked, why not Bush Schwarzenegger? Back in the real world, before Bush picked Cheney, his short list included women. Also ran Elizabeth Dole, New Jersey Governor Christine Todd Whitman, and Maine Senator Olympia Snowe. Gore's short list includes Hispanic state vote magnets, Energy Secretary Bill Richardson, and Florida Senator Bob Graham.
Clearly, if Graham is on the ticket, he puts Florida into play.
Gore could use Florida's 25 electoral votes, and presumably Graham could deliver them. But does he want the job? Turns out the hardest working senator in Washington is working hard to get it.
When he's been interviewed, he has a lot of positive things to say about himself, why he would be a good nominee.
The more you hear somebody talked about as the likely nominee, then the less likely that person will be to get the job.
I believe we all collectively ask ourselves that question.
Campaigns love to drop the names of favorite sons, especially where ethnic voting blocks like Cubans are considered vital. Remember when Alex Pinellas was mentioned as Gore's running mate?
I think he's basically a schoolboy politician. He'd be better running the local Scorpion Society.
That's probably what they thought at the Gore campaign after Pinellas dissed the feds during Elion. It was a political faux pas so serious, it turned vice presidential timber into sawdust. So how important is the pick of a vice president after all is said and done? Well, not very. Or let me put it this way, Bush's selection of Cheney is as crucial to his chances as Winona LaDuke's to Ralph Nader's chances.
Mark Mooney, thanks very much. By the way, I think Winona really boosted the ticket.
Sure.
I loved her in Heathers. We're going to talk now about the choice of Dick Cheney today and what Al Gore may choose. We're joined now by Joe Geller, the former chairman of the Miami-Dade Democratic Committee and a currently on leave and currently a member of the National Democrat, the DNC. Thanks for joining us. And a Republican political strategist, Tim Keegan, and a friend to the Times, Tim Keegan. Thanks very much. Not that you're not a friend, Joe.
Hey, we're all friends.
Tim, let's start with you. Dick Cheney, why is it a good choice? And don't give us a cop-out answer. Why is it a good choice?
No, I think it's a safe pick for the Bush campaign. I think that's what they were going for. They were trying to potentially distance himself from President Bush's choice of Quayle. Cheney is a Washington insider. He brings with him the Federalist view of how government works. He's held a series of positions within the government, very much patterned after, in fact, President Bush's history as well. Multiple agencies, as a congressman, been around it, again, since the age of 34. I mean, it's quite a long time in Washington.
And a strong speller, which will help a lot.
Exactly.
Joe Geller, we mentioned in the story before about the conservative voting record, which is already out now, has already become a story. I take it Democrats will tap into that.
Well, actually, from our point of view, this is probably helpful to us. The fact is that Dick Cheney has an arch conservative voting record, things that are way out of the mainstream. He is, in fact, a right-wing extremist based on his record in Congress. Clearly, Governor Bush has been dogged by this reputation of being an intellectual lightweight. And he had to make some kind of a choice that at least brought some weight and gravity to this ticket. So he was forced to pick someone like Dick Cheney, not a very exciting choice, but just to at least counteract his own reputation as probably not having what it takes to be president. But what he's done is picking a very controversial, extreme right-winger way out of the mainstream.
Mark, any thoughts on this?
Well, there's no question that a Bush-Cheney ticket makes the world safe for big oil.
I think that can be said with assurance.
Absolutely correct. This is a guy who's, probably helped drive up our gas prices in this country.
Tim, let me ask you, Dave Obey, a congressman from Wisconsin today and a friend of Dick Cheney, says that Cheney's such a personable guy that everybody likes him, that he gives the appearance of being much more moderate than he actually is. Is all this stuff about voting against armor-piercing bullets, cop killers, is that going to come back to
when you subtract the Democrat hyperbole about the record, I mean, if we had anybody out there, of course they're an extremist right wing. I think Cheney solidifies the Republican position within the convention. I think when you're winning, you can afford to play it safe, and I think, in fact, that's what they've done.
Let's talk about, real quick, about 30 seconds, what we're looking at for Al Gore's choice. What do you think, Joe?
Well, I think Bob Graham's a very strong contender. I hear great things about his chances. He's done a great job for this state. If he's on the ticket, Florida's even more in play than it is otherwise.
Tim, would Bob Graham be a good choice?
Yeah, I would agree with Graham. I think it puts Florida in play, and if the Democrats hold California and they pick up Florida, it's probably a win for Gore. The other choice, of course, is Senator George Mitchell, highly respected, brings a lot to the table. Of course, Maine is probably already in the Democrat column.
Last question, very quick, just your quick answers. In November, I think we know how this is going to go, but I'm going to do it anyway. Who's going to win it? Joe Geller.
Peace and prosperity, Al Gore wins.
Tim?
Bush, the world's a safer place.
Mark?
Ralph Nader.
You stole my line. I knew if I went to you, you were going to take my line.
Go for Buchanan.
I could go with Buchanan. It's not as funny as Ralph Nader.
You're right. He is funny.
Joe Geller, Tim Keegan, and that guy. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Weather times are next, but first the quote game. To my knowledge, nobody's ever died from smoking marijuana, and believe me, some nights I tried. You just can't do it. Who said it? Robert Downey Jr., Woody Harrelson, or Hunter Thompson? The answer when we come back.
Industrial, sir. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3. It's a Sam's Club size can of Bass. Whoa. Costco's. Industrial size can of Bass.
Are you kidding me? Oh.
To my knowledge, nobody has ever died from smoking marijuana, and believe me, some nights I've tried. You just can't do it. Who said it? Woody Harrelson. Imagine living in a world where a size 4 is considered fat. Today's teens don't need to imagine it, they live it every single day. Is it any wonder then that the number of women with anorexia or bulimia has doubled in the past 30 years? Tomorrow on The Times, reporter Faye Fredericks reports on a world obsessed with the waif look. Let's do the weather. We're doing it inside because it's never been more humid outside. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow morning. Scattered showers may make it a wet start to the day in some areas. Partly cloudy skies tomorrow afternoon with highs in the upper 80s along the shore, near 90 inland. Across the country, fair skies everywhere except New York. Expect showers there and a high of 72. Over the next 5 days, you can expect highs near 90 with scattered thunderstorms likely each and every afternoon. We'll check our web poll results now. The question tonight, who is more worthy of being banned from the Today Show? 8% say Darva Conger, who has in fact been banned from the Today Show. 92% say O.J. Simpson, who has not. And nobody said Scott Baio. So, you know, I guess they can feel free to book him if he's available. Time's up, almost. Every 4 years, presidential candidates feel obliged, it appears, to come up with incredibly vapid slogans that would be, they feel will energize Americans. Who could forget gems like building a bridge to the 21st century and 1,000 points of light? Well, George W. Bush, not to be outdone, has added his own clever ditty to the list. He unveiled it today while announcing Dick Cheney as his running mate.
Early this morning, I called and asked him to join me in renewing America's purpose together.
The countdown was ours. He didn't actually include that. But renewing America's purpose, it was right there on the podium. It means absolutely nothing. What are we actually renewing? We're in the midst of the greatest prosperity this country has seen in a very long time. And what is America's purpose anyway? I'd love to ask Bush that in the middle of a presidential debate. I got $50 says he won't have any idea. Oh, and by the way, we promise we'll pick on Al Gore very soon. Now, our time's up. Thanks for watching. I'm Ben Mankiewicz. These are the times on WAMI 69. Sports Town with Mark Jones and Tim Ring is next.
Straight ahead on Sports Town, the Dolphins fought to get their top picks into camp. When the rookies arrived today, the fights didn't stop. Tempers flaring in the Florida Heat. Also ahead, it's talented, fast, and crowded. The Dolphin receiving corps battles for roster spots. We'll break down the early leaders.
The Marlins stomp into Atlanta hoping to do their best impersonation of General Sherman's troops, burn down the city, and take no prisoners. And the game's best catcher undergoing surgery to repair his disjointed digit. On the show that has all its digits intact, Sports Town next.